There was a time when a club with the wealth of Paris Saint-Germain, and a few others besides, threatened to leave an old heritage piece like Arsenal behind. Yet again this was a night when the scope of Mikel Arteta's rebuild was clear once more. Arsenal have come to be one of the best sides in the Premier League. This night, there was again the possibility that they might be one of the best in Europe. PSG are going through yet another of their new dawns, fewer big stars, more projected great promise, and against Arteta's battle-hardened team it never looked in doubt for the home side. This is not the PSG side of Kylian Mbappe, or indeed of Lionel Messi, or Neymar, all of whom have come and gone at PSG since these two clubs last met in the Champions League group stages 8 years ago. One might say that in spite of those huge names, and others beside, coming through this great Qatari state project, it has been Arsenal's change that has been more profound. That Arsenal era of Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil, as well as Shkodran Mustafi and Carl Jenkinson, all of whom started when last PSG played at the Emirates, feels like it belongs to another club. That was to be Arsenal's last Champions League season of the Arsène Wenger era. Since then PSG have reached a Champions League final, and 2 further semi-finals, but there was no doubt they are now behind Arteta's side in their development. One need only ask their manager. Luis Enrique was unequivocal about the difference in quality between the two teams. Asked about the 2 errors from his goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma for the 2 first-half goals, PSG's Spanish coach at first seemed like he was to absolve the Italian. Only then did Enrique implicate his whole side. Like his colleagues, Donnarumma was far from the standards required for this team, Enrique said. Our opponents were much better in terms of intensity, and they won every duel. Kai Havertz embarrassed Donnarumma for the first goal, and Arsenal's captain on the night, Bukayo Saka, played on the Italians' uncertainties for the second. In defense, Arsenal were anchored by their own great Parisian, William Saliba. PSG finished with 62% possession. They passed the ball more often. Yet they had 1 fewer attempt on Arsenal's goal than the 4 Arsenal had on theirs. Overall, the home side were just too powerful. The epic new Champions League format stretches so far into the season that it is hard to cast too far. Even so, Enrique was emphatic. From the first minute Arsenal were superior to us in the game, he said. We knew from the first minute they were going to press us with aggression. They did it very well and we could not handle that kind of pressure. Arsenal looked comfortable with the demands of European football. They have a cynical edge when required. Enrique's more conventional Spanish possession-based approach rarely looked effective. Indeed, he would later substitute his key playmaker Vitinha. Once in their stride, Arsenal are very difficult to disrupt, and they were 2 goals up within 35 minutes. To a rapturous welcome, there was an Arsenal debut in the second half for the Spain international and Euro 2024 winner Mikel Merino, back from injury and on as a substitute. Jurrien Timber was replaced at halftime with Jakob Kiwior. Arteta said that the Dutch defender had a muscular issue. Yet by the end, Arsenal's general control was such that among all the young French talent, so came the Islington teenager Miles Lewis-Skelly, at 18 making his Champions League debut. It was notable that Arsenal went for the throat as early as the 3rd minute when a very direct ball through the middle of PSG picked out Gabriel Martinelli's run and Donnarumma had to be brave to save at his feet. From there the home side refused to let PSG settle, and a lineup that, for all its undoubted skill, looked comparatively lightweight. Unbeaten in their domestic season until this night, and having won their first Champions League game against Girona, this was a very different challenge for PSG, and they struggled with it. Enrique set up with the South Korea international Lee Kang-in as a false 9. He had the 2 Portuguese playmakers, Vitinha and João Neves, on the ball as much as possible. Yet when Arsenal moved on goal they did so that much more decisively. The first Arsenal goal was of the kind that you see much more rarely now. It was a cross from Leandro Trossard, who had created the chance from very little, driving from midfield with the ball, slowing down Vitinha and then accelerating past him. The Belgian dropped the ball in between goalkeeper and striker, and it was a straight contest of courage and speed. Havertz put his head on it before Donnarumma arrived with an unconvincing flap at the ball. 10 minutes later, Arsenal scored a second when Saka won a free kick out on the right as Nuno Mendes found him increasingly difficult to handle. From the whipped left-footed ball in, Thomas Partey looked like he might have got a touch, but the replays suggested Saka's hit had found its way through without interference. Once again Donnarumma had hesitated at the crucial moment. Enrique switched his side in the second half to a more direct approach. Vitinha and the French teenager Desire Doué were replaced. Fabian Ruiz and Randall Kolo Muani offered more threat. João Neves struck the bar with a shot clipped first time with the outside of his foot. Yet PSG seemed as far off by the end as they had when they started, against an Arsenal team that Enrique pointed out were just as comfortable sitting back to defend their lead as they had been pursuing their 2 first-half goals. Saka, I told the boys we had to make a statement. After missing out on the Premier League title last season by only 2 points, and losing the Euros final with England in the summer, Bukayo Saka says he has a lot of hunger in my belly, and explained how his pre-match team talk involved telling his teammates they needed to make a statement tonight. Arteta, Havertz is unbelievable. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta was understandably pleased with the result, and paid tribute to Kai Havertz after the match, describing him as having an incredible football brain, and being one of our main players. Really happy. We played a big opponent, a team who has a lot of personality. That is very difficult to deal with, especially when you don't have the ball, but I think in the first half we dominated and caused them a lot of issues. But the second half was a different story. On Havertz, he's been unbelievable. His football brain, the way he understands space, his timing, the way he brings people together. He just guides the team, and then his work ethic is incredible, and now every time he's around the box he's a real threat. He's one of our main players at the moment. On set pieces, it's another weapon that we have. We have great takers and we have a very physical team at the moment that we can put out there. We work on that a lot. We give credit first of all to the coaches for the work they have done, and then the players, for buying into it and understanding that these are game changers. If we dominate every phase of play, then we become a much better team. A comfortable win for Arsenal, who had to endure a modicum of pressure midway through both halves but rarely looked in trouble once they had taken the lead. Fine performances by Saka, Raya and Arsenal's centre-halves, who dealt with everything in commanding fashion. The Gunners are up to 8th place in that enormous Champions League table, with 4 points, while PSG are down in 18th with 3.